Hey, folks. That guy's from your Insider Indianapolis Star. Mike Niziolek, News and Herald Times. Indiana 77, Western Illinois 3.
Why do you laugh?
This will obviously be short. Listen, I don't know if Indiana could exceed expectations in this game. I guess probably the only way to do it was set a program record for points in a single game, which they did. I think the biggest takeaway from this is just, you had Curt Cignetti last week talking about maybe some complacency, needing to learn how to play with an edge, with a lead, kind of keep momentum alive when you have it. I think Indiana scored on his first 9 non-half-ending drives tonight. Everybody got in on the act. 6 different players had a rushing touchdown. 3 different quarterbacks combined to go 19 of 21 for 378 yards and 3 touchdowns. Indiana had, 3 sacks? 6 sacks. So substantially even more than I thought. They allowed no sacks. They did not turn the ball over. They scored a defensive touchdown. They never punted once. Even allowing for Western Illinois being, probably one of the poorest teams that this stadium's seen in a long time, if ever. Nights like this don't happen very often for Indiana. And you could tell Curt Cignetti was kind of pleased with it.
Well, I think he was pleased that there was no letdown. They could basically, like you said earlier in the week, name their score, average 10.3 yards per play, set a, I don't know if you measured total offensive record with 701 yards. Did you cover that Purdue game?
I did.
Purdue game in, 2013 was the previous record. We're not around for the 1901 scoring record.
No, I was a senior in high school.
Not around.
I showed up as a freshman at IU the next year, Franklin. Which I assume is Franklin College.
Well, and then I think the largest margin of victory too. Or second largest.
Second largest. Franklin. Yeah. The previous record for points was 76-0 over Franklin in 1901. That is the largest margin of victory. This is the most points scored, as well as you said, the most total yards.
So like you said, everything kind of went to plan, and you kind of get to UCLA not only unscathed, but with that momentum that you sort of built up last week with a win over FIU. And got reps for guys that aren't going to see. Charlie Becker, one of the guys that scored a rushing touchdown. Hardy, the linebacker, freshman linebacker, had a pick 6. Guys that are not going to probably have an opportunity unless there's an injury to play. Got some reps, got some things to put on film. Good learning experience for them. Only one injury. James Bama, tight end, was shaken up and left the game. But other than that, 2 got through unscathed, and I think that was the goal, just to try to get to UCLA, because that's sort of the pivotal game of this first 4-game stretch.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, the thing you're maybe struck by is the directions these two teams are going to be coming from into that game next week. You had Indiana look kind of like a week 1 team last week against Florida International. We talked a lot about that. Post-game podcast, all the things we've written. Then you had them come through today, and it was clear everybody felt like a lot of stuff got cleaned up. The penalties were lower. No sacks allowed. Pass pro is better. And again, yes, the competition was what it was. But, Curt Cignetti also said you can only play the schedule. He said, what did he say? Like, you tell us what the schedule is, and we just get them ready. And so would you rather be Indiana, who's beaten 2 pretty empty-calorie teams, but has scored a combined 108 points, has allowed just 10, has 10 sacks already this season, I think 3 turnovers now, a defensive touchdown, or would you rather be a UCLA team that went out to Hawaii, struggled with a Hawaii team that may or may not be very good, and then took this week off? Everybody around this program has been talking for so long about momentum and positive momentum, and that is what Indiana has earned, no matter who they played, going into that UCLA game, which, as you said, is, probably the most important game this month. I would include Maryland in that, just because it's an opportunity on the road, and because if you win that and then you win Charlotte, not only are you 4-0, you're 1-0 in the conference, and you have lent yourself kind of this idea that you are prepared to take advantage of this favorable schedule with a really, really good first season under Curt Cignetti.
And like you said, discounting the sort of competition, I think the 2 things that stood out to me, through these first 2 weeks now that you could say kind of established, the athleticism in the running back room is just much different than it was last year. All their running backs, the scholarship guys in the rotation, had explosive carries, explosive runs. Elijah Green's been in the mix, each week and shown some things. Decisive with the ball, really get upfield quick. Justice Ellison had 117 yards on just 9 carries. Just really impressed me these first 2 weeks, just how much of a difference that it was versus last year, where it just slow and plodding is how I would describe kind of the
Yeah.
run game. And then the defensive front, we've mentioned just kind of they're really disruptive. Especially I think the front four has been more disruptive than I thought they would be. I thought they'd do a lot of get a lot of the pressures with sacks and things like that, but they really haven't had to. They've got Mikel Kamara's been very disruptive. Tyreek Tucker had a really good game today, and I think that's an encouraging thing for a team that wasn't really sure. It didn't have a ton of depth, but it's shown that it might be a little better than I think we even thought it was.
I think you want guys to just feel like the identity that you've been preaching to them all off season is there and is kind of coming through. And like Mikel Kamara talked today about this is what we did at James Madison. This is the kind of defense we were there. We were always confident it was going to carry over, and now it has. I think the other thing, and we can finish on this, but just your thoughts. You mentioned a little bit earlier. Young guys getting a chance. Omar Cooper, not necessarily a younger guy, but probably gets more snaps tonight with Donovan McCulley sat down because of the injury, or maybe just precautionary. He has a 100-plus yard game and a touchdown. You talked about the running back rotation. We talked about the quarterbacks. How much some of these guys play long term, we'll see. Elijah Hardy was actually one of 4 true freshmen. He's technically not a true freshman, but for Indiana's purposes, he is. One of 4 first-year freshmen to play last week, and then he comes out this week with the interception return for a touchdown, and he forces a fumble. We talked particularly on that defense, but really across this team about how Indiana was going to need to find some depth as the season went along. This is the kind of game where, and Curt Cignetti seemed very pleased about this too, it's not just about getting guys like that snaps, but getting them in positions to be productive. So if you do need them later down the line, they at least have a little bit of confidence built up of, I've been out there, I've made plays at the college level. Maybe it slows things down for them a little bit. And maybe if you do need just, 10, 12 quality snaps from a guy in a game like Nebraska or a game like Michigan State, they can reach back for the confidence that they got on a night like this when they were able to go out and make plays regardless of the opponent.
Yeah, I think they switched. I didn't see what the offensive line was when they went to kind of the second string offense with about 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. It would be interesting to see, kind of to go back and see what they went with. I think that's probably, defensive front and offensive line are kind of probably the most 2 important places that this team needs to sort of establish some of those young guys to get them ready just in case there's an injury. Because, Becker, who's a receiver, is probably not going to play. I mean, even if they have 2 more injuries at receiver, just because of how deep they are. But offensive line, defensive line are guys that, like you said, nicks and bruises add up there. It's just those are punishing positions, and to have guys. Last week, Turvey gave you some quality snaps. This week, Tucker, is playing like a starter. Those, the depth at those positions, I think, were probably more valuable in that second half than anything else.
We'll leave it there. Indiana, obviously 2-0 now on the season at UCLA next weekend. I think you will be making that trip for us. I'll be calling from home. Calling from home. I'm going to sneak up to this. I'm going to watch the game in this suite.
I will be calling in
alone
to watch the game. I don't know how that works.
I'll call you while I'm at home in my office watching the game on TV.
Give me your commentary.
It's a big one for the Hoosiers, but they go into it certainly with wind in their sails. He's Mike Niziolek for the Bloomington Herald-Times. I'm Zach Osterman, the Indianapolis Star. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you soon.